Nitro Rad.
Water levels. That's something no one wants to see. It's become pretty well known over the years that water levels are no fun. There's a lot of video games that are pretty infamous for having very frustrating and poorly designed water levels. But why is this? Why do we hate water levels so much? What is it that makes them so bad? Well, believe it or not, there are a lot of games out there that have really good water levels. And I mean damn good ones. No one seems to give them any attention though, because I guess we tend to focus on the bad ones so everyone forgets about the good ones. So if these games manage to do it so right, if it is possible to have a really good water level, why do they usually suck? Well, it's a series of staples and tropes that have plagued game design since the 80s. There are a number of things you have to do right in order to make a good water level. Firstly, let's take a look at some bad examples. Let's get the negative out of the way before we move on to the positive. So, let's see if we can find out just what it is that makes water levels bad. Alright, let's start by looking at the most infamous water level of all time. It may be over-exaggerated how bad it truly is, but there are some staples of water level game design that make it not as good as it could have been. So here we have the Water Temple from Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. You'll spend the majority of the level walking underwater with the use of the Iron Boots, which will weigh Link down to walk on the temple floor. What do you notice about this? What is it about this game mechanic that makes the game so frustrating? Well, I'll tell you why. Link moves slow as molasses. This is the first video game design staple that ruins water levels.
1.
A bad water level hinders movement. The first and possibly biggest reason people don't like water levels is because in most of them, your speed is greatly reduced. This makes it take way longer to do tasks that would otherwise be easy to do on land. Mario's been a big contender of this since Super Mario Bros. In the underwater stages, Mario moves a lot more slowly. Now these stages are by no means awful whatsoever, but it was the start of this principle of game design, making the character move slower in water. Skies of Arcadia serves as another great example of this. I don't know a single person who's beaten this game who hasn't complained about Vice's underwater walking speed in Mount Kazai. This is one of the absolute worst uses of this design choice. Usually water levels add something to the gameplay with the cost of making you slower, like in Mario being able to swim to the top of the screen. Skies of Arcadia, however, offers nothing. The only way the gameplay is affected is by making the characters slower. This is not good game design. The obvious argument to defend this is that, realistically, you would actually move slower in water. But I say to hell with that. There are plenty of games that work just fine either ignoring this realism or equipping the character with something that allows them to have improved movement in water. For example, the gravity suit in Metroid. The Sonic games also fall victim to the hindrance mechanic of water levels. Ask yourself this, what is Sonic known for? Well, speed, going really fast. Okay, so why don't we make a level that will greatly reduce his speed? That's not a good idea. Why would anyone think that's a good idea? This mistake is a result of thinking about theming first and mechanics second. They wanted a water level, so they thought of mechanics that would make it a water level. That's not a good way to design a video game. You should think of exciting game mechanics first and then choose a setting where that kind of design works. A great example of doing this right is the upcoming Wii U title, Splatoon. They wanted to make a third-person shooter game where you could use the paint you create to travel. The mechanic of swimming in paint was created before designing the characters to be squids. That works really well because instead of thinking about what do squids do and how the hell do we make a game about squids, they thought of the gameplay first and then chose the characters that would fit it well. If the water comes as an obstacle and not a method of enhancing gameplay, then your level probably isn't very good. Now back to the Sonic example. Not only is movement hindered, but Sonic can now jump higher. This is a step in the right direction, as it's something you're capable of doing that you could not do on land. That brings me to my next point. A bad water level diminishes gameplay mechanics instead of enhancing them. If you're going to make a level themed after something different, it should complement the gameplay in some sort of way. Let's take a look at the Mega Man games. Have you ever heard anyone complain about the water levels of Mega Man? The answer is likely no, and if it's yes, you probably haven't heard many complaints about it. Well, the reason for this is because the water levels in Mega Man give you new abilities that you could not have on land without making the player slower. In Mega Man, when you're in the water, you move just as fast as you would normally. The only change is that now you can jump higher. This is great game design, as it offers the player a form of variety without taking elements of the gameplay that were enjoyable away from the player. Shovel Knight also does this remarkably well, as the same deal applies to that game. You walk the exact same speed, but your jumping ability is increased. It complements the gameplay in Shovel Knight even more, as your fall speed is also decreased, giving you a larger window of time for you to bounce on enemies with your shovel. Let's go back to Zelda. Now, Ocarina of Time's water levels did decrease your movement speed, but it did offer some gameplay mechanics that were not possible on land. For example, the water currents that would pull Link away that you had to fight against with the Iron Boots and well-timed launches of the hook shot. Alright, we've made a step in the right direction. There's some bad mechanics here and there, but as developers, we're gonna learn, right? We're gonna fix those in the sequel. So, fast forward 2 years to the release of Majora's Mask. In this game, you now have the ability to transform into a Zora, a creature that is capable of enhanced movement underwater. Majora's Mask sports many of the bells and whistles of the water game mechanics from Ocarina, but now without hindered movement. Instead, Link has the ability to move even faster in water than he can on land. Now this is good game design. Like I said before, entering the water should enhance the gameplay, not hinder it. The Great Bay Temple is what I would consider to be the holy grail of all water levels. This level does a lot of things right, and it doesn't do many things wrong. Now that Link's equipped with his new Zora body, walking on the temple's surface is a piece of cake. This is because Zora Link retains his normal walking speed even when he's underwater. There's also many puzzles involving the flow and spraying of water to open new areas and to manipulate the platforms that you will navigate. The Zelda team learned from all of the mistakes they made in Ocarina and expanded upon the things they did right. Because of this, the Great Bay Temple is what I would consider a great water level. Twilight Princess also did a great job with its water level, the Lakebed Temple. In The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, Link obtains Zora armor, which allows him to swim at a reasonably fast pace like he could in Majora's Mask. Twilight Princess then further expands upon underwater gameplay by giving Link the ability to still use many of his items underwater. In Ocarina of Time, you could only still use the hook shot. You couldn't swing your sword or use any other item. But in Twilight Princess, Link keeps his ability to swing a sword when underwater. This opens up possibilities for underwater combat. Not only that, but there's also a special kind of bomb that Link acquires that still works underwater. The Iron Boots make a return, but this time it's an equipable item, eliminating the long pause screen interruption between wearing and removing them. Like I said before, hindered gameplay can make a level bad, and bringing up that pause screen every few seconds was the biggest reason the gameplay was hindered. Alright, let's take a look at how long it takes to remove the Iron Boots in Twilight Princess. Alright, let's see how long it takes to remove them in Ocarina. Luckily, this was a problem that was fixed in the 3DS port of the game, thank God. Having all of the abilities to make you capable of completing the level at a reasonable pace makes it easier to be patient with and enjoy the level. That said, here is my third point. 3. A bad water level overstays its welcome. How many water levels have you played that seem to go on and on? I find this pretty apparent in the 2D Mario games, especially the newer ones, the new Super Mario Bros. Games. The water levels in Mario are typically well enough designed to be bearable, but they do tend to drag on. This is partially because of the reduced movement speed, which can make traversing the stage take up to 4 times as long as it would a stage without water. Water levels also have a habit of being maze-like for some reason, which further contributes to the amount of time it takes to complete the stage. Examples being Aquatic Mine from Sonic Adventure 2, oh my lord, fuck that level. And again, Ocarina's Water Temple. Just because it's a water level doesn't mean you have to change the pace of the gameplay. Try to make it just as fast-paced and exciting as the other levels in the game. Just because water slows you down in real life does not mean you need to let water slow down the pace of the game. I've noticed that the Rayman games seem to do pacing and water levels exceptionally well. In Rayman 3, Hoodlum Havoc, there's a water level that seems to show up out of nowhere. However, it's really short and sweet. It never really felt like an obstruction to me, but instead another slice of the Rayman pie, but just with another topping on it. Rayman Legends does a fantastic job of this. Legends plays just as fast underwater as it does on land, which is something I applaud. Legends water levels last just as long as any other level in the game. They're not too long, and they're just lengthy enough to serve a delicious helping of gameplay. Not only does Legends water levels do that, but they also just look and sound nice. Really nice. Like, beautifully nice. And that brings me to my fourth and final point. A bad water level has a boring aesthetic. Now, if you're not too sure what that word means, essentially it's what's communicated by the visuals and sound. How the game looking and sounding a certain way can make you feel. It's really just a big fancy word that people like to use to sound smart when they're talking about films and whatever. Like I'm doing right now. Another reason many water levels fail to retain our interest is from boring visual design. Take the water levels in New Super Mario Bros. For example. They're all the same bluish, cookie-cutter ocean levels we've all seen time and time again, with the boring, slow-paced xylophone music. It just lacks the energy and excitement the other levels in the game have. Same thing applies to, again, the Water Temple. The boring gray walls, the lack of color outside the lowly saturated blue, it just drones on you. Oh look, they even made Link blue to match the boring color scheme. Now, water levels tend to aim towards a more relaxing aesthetic, which can work. Mario 64 and Pikmin both do it exceptionally well with the beautiful bit of music that plays during them. Oh my god, that song just makes my ears melt. You really should try to communicate something more unique. It doesn't have to be really exciting, just interesting. Rayman Legends water levels have a very undercover spy feel to it, as it uses a lot of spy-sounding guitar in its music. Not only that, but the visibility is very low. A high-contrast black fills the screen with bright red lasers scattered all around you. The way Legends looks and sounds just feels good to play. And once again, we have ourselves looking at the Great Bay Temple. Instead of having boring grays and lackluster blues, the Great Bay Temple gives us rusty reds, vibrant greens. It's just more appealing to the eye than the Water Temple was. As for the music, instead of just a boring, relaxing chime kind of sound, it has a very clunky sound, like someone's putting pipes together or something like that. Majora's Mask has a really powerful aesthetic, and I'll tell you why. Something that powerfully impacts you both visually and audibly sticks with you. I remember playing Majora's Mask in my room years back, being in the middle of the Great Bay Temple. I'm doing this and I hear my dad call up to me, telling me that dinner's ready. It's this chicken and potato casserole, the only thing he knows how to make really well, and it tastes pretty damn good. As I eat it, I'm still thinking about the Great Bay Temple. I hear the clanking of the temple's music in my head as I eat the delicious meal. Now, every time I eat that chicken casserole, I always think of the Great Bay Temple, even years later. And that's because it had a very powerful aesthetic that stayed with me as I went downstairs, and because of that, I now associate these two great things with each other. Now, you can't just have a good aesthetic, the level has to be fun too, obviously. It wouldn't have been nearly as impactful if I wasn't having a lot of fun while I enjoyed the fantastic setting the developers have constructed. So, let's look at these 4 notes again with the Great Bay Temple in mind. 1. A good water level doesn't hinder movement. Well, Zora Link is even more versatile underwater than he is on land. Check. 2. A good water level enhances gameplay mechanics instead of diminishing them. Okay, we got the currents you need to control to access new areas, and Zora Link is capable of performing all of his moves that he had on land underwater. Magic Shield's still there, Boomerang's still there, so check. 3. A good water level doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't take any longer to finish the Great Bay Temple as it does to finish the game's other 3 temples, so check. 4. A good water level has an interesting aesthetic. Check. Looks like the Great Bay Temple does all of these things right. This is why I consider it a great water level. It has all of the qualities you need to make one good. So, game developers, when you guys are designing a water level, try to keep these 4 things in mind. You just might break the cycle these game design tropes have video games caught in. Now, of course, this isn't literally all what it takes to make a good water level. It's just a list of things that I personally believe have the potential to make a water level great. It's a list of things that I notice in good water levels that I notice a lack of in bad water levels. So, I don't know. I might just be spewing bullshit at this point. I mean, like, I'm not this big expert on game design, but at least I tried giving it some thought. I mean, things suck for a reason, right? We may as well try to figure out what that reason is so people can avoid doing it in the future, am I right? So, what do you guys think? What do you think are qualities of a good water level? I want you guys to try and think of an example of what makes a water level good, and then another one that makes a water level bad. I hope I at least gave you something interesting to consider, so, as always, thanks for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed it, and take care, guys. Hey guys, how you doing? Once again, welcome to the credits card. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could click that like button for me. If you're in the mood for another video about water levels, why don't you check out my top 10 best water levels video. You can watch that video by clicking on it right here. Also, if you have nothing better to do right now for some reason, I have a Facebook page that you can like by clicking the link in the description below. I'd really like to thank my friend Robbie for helping me record all of the HD footage used in this video, because I don't have an HD capture card and I need to change that. Also, it would be fantastic if you could share this video with your friends and anyone that you might think would like it. I'd also love to thank anyone that's posted comments giving me constructive criticism. Recently, a guy posted a comment saying that the mic quality was a lot lower on the parts when I was on screen, so I actually tried setting up my external microphone and recording audio simultaneously, and surprisingly that worked pretty well, so I really appreciate the criticism. It only helps me get better, make better content, and improve. So, I guess I'll see you guys later. See ya.